How have you been? It's been a couple.
Yeah, overall, have been well. Have been busy.
Good, good. I know when you work for yourself, busy is good.
Yeah, in this case, it was all the app-related stuff across three different things that I've been working on for the past couple
Yeah,
weeks.
I've been seeing the email notifications for flight, flight, flight test, test flight.
Yeah, I did. So we'll get to the iOS ones. I didn't put this one in the notes, but the one that is a web app that I had mentioned before expanded beyond just content production. So any small business would find it useful and did all the marketing related stuff and blah, blah, blah. So hopefully this week and or next week, I'll start attempting to advertise and see what kind of traction I get with it.
Very cool. Very cool.
Uh, so that probably took up the bulk of the work, and then MA Journey took up the next closest bulk. But we'll get to that in a moment. I figured I would put it in follow up just because you mentioned the feature request on the show.
I saw in the test flight and email.
Yeah, I do have that live in beta. I submitted it today for app review. So follow up to the follow up was that I submitted it today. But if you remember when we were talking about it in general, I had mentioned questioning a bit about the odometer entry and whether to like erase the mileage field or just keep it where it was and all that stuff. Do you recall that conversation?
I do. I think that my I think my comment on that was to create a setting where you could choose either behavior.
Yeah, I decided to do something different.
What did you do?
So
because after you brought it up, I paid more attention to it, and I was like, I can understand why you're having some difficulty deciding what to do. Because I was like, when I'm using it, I'm like, I don't know what I would like better.
So I decided to implement both.
The toggle.
Well, no, I didn't do a toggle. So I decided if you type a number, I'll clear the field and just let you type the numbers. But if you tap the delete key, I will force the deletion from the end one space. So you could do either one.
That's
seamlessly.
I think that's probably a really good decision there.
It took me a little while to kind of figure out how I wanted to do it. Again, because of our conversation, if listeners want to go back and actually hear the full thing. But there are times when I would rather just type.
Yeah.
And there are times when I would rather just delete the last couple of numbers. And so that, since I'm already doing the proper toggle on the keyboard, it's like, well, as a user, if I just type a number, I would probably be pleasantly surprised if it just stored that number and nothing else.
So is the question I have, is that update going to be available tomorrow? Because I got to go get gasoline tomorrow.
That's going to depend on Apple's review. So that one should be a pretty easy and quick review. So it just depends on how quick it gets actually processed for review. I think the fastest I've ever had happen was overnight. So maybe there's a chance.
It's not unreasonable.
Yeah, but the beta version does include the discount tracking. I'm pretty sure the beta includes. Oh, I may not have pushed that to the larger beta group. That may be why. I'll have to look. I should be able, at a minimum, to toggle that build for wider beta testing, and you can install the test flight version if nothing else.
Yeah, I need to go. I want to actually to even test the. I didn't do it initially because I was like, I love my data, and it's like I had this unreasonable fear that I was going to clear my data, not because of any code that you would have committed and pushed to beta or made available in the beta, but because I'm just that unfamiliar with the test flight beta process, and I know it's been a while. So I remember beta testing MA Journey, which was like I'm putting in fake information because I didn't have any information, and
right.
So it was I just, whenever there was an update, and I think that was in beta for longer because that was the first app you did, correct?
Correct.
So I just remember like when the things were coming. One time I think it was deleted, but you said, "Hey, this is going to delete your data." So so I was just like, I've been unreasonably apprehensive just because of just some feelings that I just haven't really like sat down and like, okay, it's going to be fine because this is out in the wild, or this is out in production, and he's not gonna push anything that's gonna delete my data. So, but
yeah,
I also need to go back and figure out remember how to get the test flight beta.
And I also, the one, I guess, benefit is that I always test on my data first anyway. And so if I am concerned about something, then I'm going to be figuring out how I can recover it in the first place.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, well, I'll see about doing the beta tonight so that I can test out those features tomorrow when I go get fuel.
Yeah.
See, I haven't been able to do fuel ups. I haven't been fueling my vehicle as much as often because I've been away.
Originally I was going to ask if you were back in town, but based on your earlier text, I would assume so, because otherwise that would be an odd drive.
Yeah. Well, there was the first place I went to was a 3-hour drive. Like it was just north of Memphis, and so it was just like it would take me longer to fly. It would take me longer to fly there because it would be like fly to Atlanta, fly to Memphis, drive 45 minutes north. I'm like, no, it's just a 3-hour drive. So I rented a car and drove it, and my manager's like, what you're driving? I was like, yeah, it's 3 hours away. It's like, oh, okay, where do you live? I'm like, yeah, thanks, man.
Well, I figure while we're talking, I'm going to go ahead and push the build to the full test flight group real quick too, just so I don't forget.
Do you realize? I'm sure you realize this because I know you know how to read, and I know you know how numbers work. But we kind of blew by episode 300 without any fanfare.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of glad we did because we are not going to be ruled by this. The importance of a base 10 number. So episode 300. I mean, to some extent we are, or at least I am here in this moment. But here we are, episode 303, recognizing, hey, 3 episodes ago was a milestone. If you are a disciple of the base 10 number of important, I need to workshop this. I need to come up with a proper.
Yeah, you got to boil it down to a one phrase type thing that really gets it across.
Yeah, I do.
On the flip side, the other way to make people remember the episode is as we record, we're coming up on the 4th of July, the 250th year celebration thing, if you're overly patriotic. And you could always correspond like the 303 with that and try to reconcile it in your head somehow.
I believe it's the semi-quincentennial.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, so, or the quarter millennium.
Or you can make it even more interesting and use today, since as we record, the U.S. Progressed to the round of 16 in the World Cup finals, and that just gives you yet another random data point to really remember this episode and be completely confused about why.
Yeah, especially since nobody's going to mention the format change in the round of 16. Seems like, isn't that, they qualified after the group stage? No, it does not mean that. Read your Wikipedia.
So I do figure we'll probably get into that a little bit, but
I think so.
Do you want to? I want to mention one other thing on the apps, and then we can go into whichever conversation. The other thing that I was going to mention, that because I did mention that MA Journey took up the rest of the time over the past couple weeks. Mm-hmm. Complete rewrite, some new features. Ooh. Did adopt the liquid glass in the navigation appropriately. I don't know how I feel about it, but I do like the rewrite of the app. So it got submitted for review today.
I feel like congratulations are in order. I know that you're waiting for the approval, but I think at that point it's probably hopefully it's just minor process, and there's nothing to disapprove it. You'll get quick and speedy approval.
Yeah, this one feels pretty good since it was a ground up rewrite. Like I did not reuse anything other than the general concepts.
Wow.
And two, I had learned over the course of doing GloveBook that the iSync storage and all that I was using was not appropriate with MA Journey as it was originally written. And I did actually manage to handle that data migration in place without any major hiccups.
I think you're the only person that's going to really know how significant that is, but I can imagine like the sense of like satisfaction you must have from being able to do that. Like, like I mentioned earlier about GloveBook, it's like my precious data. It's like, okay, it's mileage and so forth. I'm like, yeah, but still, So I don't think I will know the full extent of what that means, or the full extent of in the way that you do. But I do know that it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I did think that I might have fucked myself up a couple of times, and I did not, thankfully. So
good.
But it just goes back to, at the end of the day, I'm testing on my stuff first anyway, and then figuring out how to recover if I do mess it up. So it ends up helping other people as a byproduct.
Yes, which is excellent.
I think that's all I really have on the apps. I can certainly go into more details, but so I guess the only other thing I would mention, I did decide to change the pricing model for MA Journey with this release.
Okay.
Not that it affects you, but it will be moving to subscription or a one-time lifetime purchase.
Okay.
And that move is predominantly because then it doesn't require the upfront cost to try it.
Mm-hmm.
You can do a 2-week free trial that's leveraging the Apple subscription stuff.
Perfect.
And that gives you, 2 weeks to use it for free. You can cancel it if you want. Prefer you keep it, but
I was gonna say 2 weeks is generous, but then it occurs to me it's also like how many workout. It seems like that's the right amount of time, because it's like there are usually recovery days in between workouts, so that makes sense. So
yeah, I figure most schools tend to recommend their students train twice a week. So that gives you at least 4 sessions that you should theoretically be logging. I train more often than that. I know plenty of other people do too. But the general average across most schools is twice. So,
well, I got to imagine that the person who trains more than twice a week is also going to be more interested in the application as well. So,
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I got 2 questions, and that is the gi belt still there?
Yes, I moved it. It's no longer in the journal page, the main session entry. I decided to move it into the progress stats page because it felt like it fit better. And I also included a widget that you can put on the home screen that draws that and gives you your time.
Nice.
Most of it was as a proof of concept to try the widget thing out. But it was easy enough. So this way, if there's anything else I decide I want to be able to do outside of the app, I can consider widget implementation. Or part of the balance there is, do I do it in a widget or do I just send you to the app? And 9 times out of 10, I'd rather just send you to the app.
So sub question, and I think I did this wrong, and I'll come back to that. But is the gi liquid glass in any way, shape, or form?
It is not. It's difficult enough to. So I rewrote the belt system completely to allow the user to customize it based on feedback that I got from different people who said, hey, this is close, but it'd be really nice if we could do this, or could do this, or our school uses this color belt here, that type thing. So there are some pre-created systems, just like there were before, that just show you examples, but you can create whatever belt system you want to use and apply for whatever martial art you want.
Nice.
And so in doing that, in order to allow that flexibility, I decided not to try to do anything fancy for now with displaying that with like the liquid glass stuff. but I did update the icon.
I did see that.
The icon is created with their icon composer with the liquid glass layer in preparation for iOS 27.
Okay, so I was you answered the question I was going to follow up with there. So yeah, perfect.
Yeah. I don't really notice any type of thing on the beta that makes me think it really matters, but we'll see. If nothing else, it does at least respond appropriately to the different display modes, like light, dark, and the clear or tinted. If you take advantage of those, so maybe that's most of what it gives me. I'm not sure.
I was going to say, if you look at, I'll see if I can find the link for this, but Basic Apple Guy posted comparison of some first-party apps, Mac OS 26 versus 27, and the differences are significant, and they just look so much better in 27, at least the ones that he had compared. I don't know if he put that on his website. I can't remember if he put that on his website or if he it was a post that he put on Threads. So I'll see if I can find it and send it to you. But I was going to say I did flub my my question sub question. I was I don't know. Because I messed it up, you may or may not have clocked it, but I was trying to, I was paying homage to the movie High Fidelity. Jack Black's character asks, you familiar with him? I'm confident you've seen this movie.
Actually, I'm not 100% certain I have.
It's, why am I blanking on his name? John Cusack, Jack Black, Joan Cusack's in it. Briefly, or like kind of a supporting character, but it's where he goes through his, it's the movie that he had the top 5 list, and he's like going through his top 5 worst breakups, and yeah, is that?
No, it's not ringing a bell.
Oh. You probably have it on Plex because it got shared when we were doing all the sharing. If not, we'll have to remedy that, but
yeah, I'll have to look.
It's a great movie. It's if even though this is, let's see, how did I used to say this? Oh, I used to say if High Fidelity and Dazed and Confused had a baby, it would be Empire Records. So if you've seen 2 of those movies, then that might make some sense as to what High Fidelity was like.
Yeah, I've seen the other 2, so that gives me at least some sort of grasp. And it doesn't make sense in the fact that High Fidelity is came out third from those, and it's hard. It doesn't match in the way that parents are supposed to be born before your children, but because Dazed and Confused was 93, Empire Records 95, and High Fidelity came out in 2000. What's cool is it's based on a Nick Hornby book. And Nick Hornby was an Arsenal fan. Anyway, it's a good movie. Anyway, Jack Black's character is hilarious, and he has a line in the movie so they're working in a record store, and John Cusack's character Rob owns the store, and Jack Black's character and another guy work at the store, and he's like, I can't fire these guys. I don't, they just started showing up to work. And so it's kind of one of those things where he probably does pay them, but he can't fire them because they'd keep coming back anyway. Anyway, they're all snobs about music. And Jack Black's character, even somebody comes in asking for something for his daughter. It's like maybe like Stevie. I don't know. Stevie. I think this is like right after this guy comes in and says, "Hey, I'm looking for this Stevie Wonder album for my daughter." And he's like, "Get out of here. Go to the mall." It's like, you don't, it's like, it's terrible. Like, you offend me with your preference in music. He's like, is your daughter even alive? He's like, is she in a coma? I'm so sorry. He's a real asshole to this guy. And so he leaves because he's like highly insulted. And anyway, so he follows that up with, all right, question. Top 5 musical crimes perpetuated by Stevie Wonder in the 80s and 90s. Sub-question. Is it in fact unfair to criticize a formerly great artist for his latter-day sins? Is it easy to burn out, then fade away? So I vaguely, a lot of that sounds familiar. So it might be something that I've seen and just not, it might be one of those where it was playing and I've seen bits and pieces.
Or maybe some time has passed, and
Yeah.
it's like
I mean,
if it's
well,
like if it's a one time, if you saw it one time, 25 years ago.
yeah, very possible as well.
Yeah, because there's some movies like I can remember watching the Pineapple Express for the second time. I was like, I don't remember any of this.
Yeah, I'll certainly have to look and see if I have it. And if so, I'll have to watch it again just to see.
Yeah, it's a good movie. It's I think in the movie, um, Jack Black's character's either talking about the names of his band, possible names of like he's trying to name his band, and I know one of them at some point they end up with the name Sonic fucking Death Monkey, but another name alternative name was Kathleen Turner Overdrive, and oh man, there were some other good names just like some really funny stuff. But I like that movie. Yeah, I like that movie. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I kind of want to go back and watch it because there's been some movies like I've watched and I'm like, oh, I watch them in a really different light. One example is 500 Days of Summer. I remember the last time I watched that and I was like, dude, the main character is kind of like he's got some serious issues and he needs to be in a lot of therapy right now because he just does not handle his breakup well. And I'm just like, dude, you fall apart from like, yes, I understand being incredibly heartbroken and sad, but the way he handles his breakup is like just an extreme level of codependency that is unbelievably childish. And then another movie I saw was Jason Sudeikis and Alison Brie, and I love both of the actors. I remember loving the movie. I can't remember if it's called Sleeping with Friends or Sleeping with. It's not sleeping. I keep wanting to call it Sleeping with Friends, but it's Sleeping with Other People is the name of the movie. And the last time I watched it, I was like, oh my god, they are so toxic. So I need to go back and watch High Fidelity and give it a middle-aged view.
Yeah, I've been spending a little more time in Plex lately, mostly organizing stuff actually. So it's not going to make any sense, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. But I think I discovered kind of a connecting piece in how I generally do jujitsu, or the vernacular would be how I play my game. And
I like that.
Well, it is like within the art, we talk about developing your game, and so are you this type of player? Are you a this type player? That type thing. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to pick up a couple of instructionals specifically targeting this piece, so I can do a deep dive over the next couple weeks and see if it feels like the kind of thing that will help immensely. And so it's the type thing that I'm gonna just look through. And I don't know if you've ever even looked in that category, but I've got a bunch of instructionals in Plex.
No.
So I spent some time cleaning that up since I normally don't watch them there. I just put them there as a place to have them. So, because I normally just access the media share and, mm-hmm. look for what I'm looking for. So I organized a lot of that recently. And so all of this just to say that I was going to finish up some stuff there tomorrow too in downtime, so I'll make sure I look. I made a note to look for the movie tomorrow as well while I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, speaking of Plex, I've been trying to catch up on my podcast because I'm a little bit behind, and everybody's releasing stuff. So, and maybe maybe some of it's for this is a holiday weekend, but there have been more episodes of the talk show than it's kind of slow, and so it's like there's been more of them. His cadence has picked up back to, like, if you take the last 3 weeks, then it's picked up, or the last 3 episodes, it's picked up back to his cadence before things slowed down. Because I know he had some personal things that he had to manage, but because there were a few months where he just he got some out like right on the last day, and I expect that it's to meet sponsor obligations. But anyway, I bring it all up because I was listening to it on the way home from taking my kids to their mom's house, and I got to a sponsor read where he read there's an app developer that was sponsoring for their app called Coax, and it sounds very interesting, just like a fun, whimsical way of using Plex. But basically, it's an app that looks at Plex, and instead of, I haven't even had a chance to look at the website to see what it's like, but the what the app does is it takes your Plex library and then presents it to you like old school channel guide. And
that's kind of neat.
Yeah. He said, like, right now, he's like, if you're listening to this, if this is a fresh, if you're listening to this right after it's released, it'll be $60, and then they'll increase the price to $75, and which is like, it's a pretty steep price. And then they also have like a subscription thing, so you can, if you want to try it out with a free subscription, they'll do that. But they support Mac OS, tvOS, iOS, which I assume is also iPad OS, and Vision OS. So I was like, okay, they're hitting everything. So I don't know if I'm wondering if it's like one time and it unlocks everything. I haven't had a chance to look, but like, I was like, that sounds like a lot of fun to, just, a different viewing experience there. So I'm going to check that out. And when I was listening to the ad read, I was like, oh, I'm sure Jesse would be like, I can't let you beat me to it in case you do. I was like, because sometimes you beat me to it. So like Alcove, you beat me to Alcove, and which I after Dub, I was like, yep, okay, buying Alcove now.
Yeah, I don't know if Coax hasn't come across my radar. But then
it's
again,
it's a new app.
With the past few weeks focusing on my apps, I haven't really listened to anything new.
I can see that.
So it's one of those things where it's kind of in cycles, and it's why I don't try to keep up with anything at the moment, because I'll essentially drop off the grid internally for a few things, and then resurface for a couple of weeks and network or do whatever, and then all of a sudden I'm back focused on something else, and then kind of over and over.
For the ones that I listen to, I if there's something that I think you'd be interested in, I definitely mention it so we can talk about it. But it did remind me that there's gonna Jason Snell and Mike Hurley are they actually did a Kickstarter that got fully funded for a podcast they're doing called Designed in California, which is it's going to be 50 episodes, so, over the span of a year, of some going into niche history things with Apple. And it sounds really good. Like, when I say niche history, it's like, shucks, I wish I could remember the example they gave, but it was just like they can go, the example they were talking about, somebody had a story where in the early days of Apple, I think with the Apple II, they were going to pitch it to somebody, and probably for software, I assume, because I think that's a lot of what they did. And there's a whole bunch of companies that were just like Apple that we've never heard of because they never went anywhere. They didn't make it out of the 70s or the early 80s, and so the story was that somebody with, I can't remember what the name of the company was now, one I'd never heard of, and they were looking at the Apple II, and they're like, oh yeah, we got this beat. And it's like, yeah, you've never heard of that company. So, and then there was one thing where I guess there was another anecdote, was like Steve Wozniak made Steve Jobs cry. Not Steve Wozniak. Steve Wozniak's father made Steve Jobs cry and sort of like wrestled some of the company back for Wozniak. And so that was kind of an interesting story.
I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like an interesting premise.
Yeah, sure. I think so. It's like, a much deeper dive into some specific things that wouldn't ever be covered in the books that people have written for the history of it and so forth. So you want to talk about America now?
Sure. Well, I want to talk about the World Cup in general. I don't want to limit it to just America.
Well, it is in America. America is one of the 3 host countries.
Yeah. But it's not as important as talking about the drama and upsets.
No. Did you hear that Germany and the Netherlands are going to face each other?
At the airport?
Yep.
I actually saw that one today, so that was funny. One thing that I do find interesting, I don't recall there being this much drama in previous World Cups. And I've seen that now fuels conspiracy theorists that it's all scripted.
It's
And
not.
I find that argument hilarious anyway, but it's crazy to think that people will, just because the rule changes are actually kind of doing what they're supposed to do, you're going to immediately jump to the least plausible explanation, which, we've talked about that before with everything else. People do it in all facets of life. It's hilarious to see it hitting mainstream football.
I like what somebody once said about American conspiracy theories, and it's like yeah, there's some that are more credible than others, or have more credible elements than others, because let's be honest here. Do you think the American government is batting 1,000 on telling us the truth? Absolutely not. So I think that, is FIFA batting 100 on fairness? Batting 1,000.
No.
I mean, that's harder for me to say yes or no to, but
see, to me, it's easy to say no to, just because of the way different rules. Well,
so
let me back up ever so slightly.
Yeah, let's confine this to the actual tournament play and who advances and who makes it all the way to the end and so forth. Do you think they're batting 1,000 on it being a completely fair tournament?
No.
Okay.
And I mean, this is why I was going to add that there is an element of individual expression that occurs because of the fact that you are talking about humans who are making refereeing decisions. So you could certainly make the case that maybe FIFA as an organization is attempting to and doing a good job there, but because they are responsible for the refereeing, that would be why I would say no. Because there have been a number of calls, not by the same refs, and this is where you have to give that kind of individual expression type of argument some level of credibility, where different refs are going to view things differently. It's just the nature of different people being different people. But the application of some of the calls has been noticeably incongruent in a way that would make me say no as my default answer.
That's a I think that's a reasonable take on that.
And I think you can make the same argument with every league when it comes to the same question. It's the nature of humans officiating humans.
So it wasn't necessarily drama, but I remember in the 2006 World Cup there were so many cards shown, like more than any World Cup before, and I think since. It was a lot of red cards, and I remember in the 2010 World Cup, there were specific, there were more guidelines given about when to issue cards because the 2006 World Cup had so many cards. I remember that being, I remember that being handled better in 2010. So and I obviously haven't watched every match because there's there were a lot of matches, and it's getting easier to catch more of the matches now since we're in elimination. But I feel like I've seen some of the controversial calls, and I've seen explanations like, okay, I understand that rule. That's been either a long-standing rule or this is a new rule. It just we're getting really into the minutia. Like there was an offsides call. I don't remember who it was against, and we had to get deep into the minutia because the keeper came out, and the keeper had come out, and the person who was in the offside position was in between the keeper and the goal, and there were only two defenders between him, and that was ruled as offside because there weren't enough defenders there, and it's like, oh, that doesn't that player kept him onside, but it's like, no, the keeper was beyond him, and so it was like it's the most technical I've seen an offsides call be, and they got it right. I just, even in the moment, I was like, how did they get that right? And then, Fox has a former FIFA referee who has been, I guess he's been on call for any of the really, interesting calls that have been going on. So I was like, okay, that's an example I can give as to like how they've had to like, I've seen like one of the more like seemingly controversial calls be explained. And I was like, okay, yes, that is. I do recall that from the guide.
Yeah, I think those aren't the ones that bother me as much as the interpretation around things like recklessness or an endangerment, I guess. Those tend to be the calls where it's like one team seems to be called for them, another team doesn't, or the types of fouls that you can tell are escalating the game and aren't being contained. The stuff that you probably only really notice and pay attention to when you're immersed in the game in some fashion as either a player or a coach, probably. Like general public, I wouldn't expect to pick up on some of the questionableness unless it's called out to them, I guess is the way I would phrase that. And I think today in the U.S. team,
the red card,
the red card was a good example of that.
So yeah, I'd like to hear your take on this because I couldn't hear any of the commentary at the time.
Yeah, so this is one of the few times where I really agree with the actual commentary and don't have a different take. So the commentary was essentially that this is where technology is both a blessing and a curse, because if you take it frame by frame and look at it slow, then you can immediately say, well, yeah, that looks like endangerment. Look at the way the ankle twists, etc. But when you watch the contextual play, you watch it, real time, how it happened, and you see players come together, and because of the off balance, his foot just comes down there where the other player was also off balanced and his foot came down there, that it's different. But and even with the commentary, I did appreciate the fact that, but when you look at it and you look at it frame by frame, I can also see why you would justify it being red. The overall commentary was that this is the type of case where, as you watch it in real time, you get a really good feel for it being an accident and pretty much unavoidable based on the nature of the collision and the positioning of the players' bodies. Sure, do a yellow, keep control of the game, but it was not any different than what we've seen not be punished in other matches also. And so that's that general feeling of how that type of game-changing administration of a punishment is really the more questionable piece out of the whole thing. And I think one of the, I don't remember which commentator, but one of them said, I would be more accepting of the red if he had immediately tossed up a yellow and then reviewed it and decided to change it to red than to not even
to go straight to red.
Into, just because of the nature of like physically
I follow
the two bodies.
I follow the logic.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me that it's like we went from, a foul to a red card.
Yeah. Well, and
straight to jail.
And the other piece that both the commentators that were talking about it, both the rules expert and the commentator himself, were saying, for me, this is where it really makes more sense to view it in real time so that you can see how the bodies are falling, how they're reacting, because that shows you that in this particular case, it's unlucky. There just simply wasn't any other place for those 2 feet to land.
Right.
And so the order of landing caused the foul. I get that. I appreciate that. I think about it from the standpoint, like if I had a kid playing and something like that happened, I'd be screaming for a red too, so I get it, because you want to be protective of your players. But I think where I am having a little bit of an immediate, no, they're not batting 1,000, is that there doesn't seem to be the right level of objectiveness in the application in those moments.
Yeah, well, I think so. I think that it is, if I'm remembering correctly, Bosnia Herzegovina's keeper got fouled at some point by an American player, and there was nothing. And it was a foul, but it wasn't. I'm trying to remember exactly I can't remember exactly what the details of it were and what the outcome. I think it was a foul, but there were no cards at all. And I was like, ooh, I really would have thought a card would have come out for that. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Not specifically, but I do remember thinking that there might have been a card for a foul on the American goalkeeper when a Bosnian player came by and shoved him.
Yeah,
I was kind of surprised that
should
didn't
have
draw a foul.
that absolutely should have been a yellow card.
And so, you combine little things like that with, like there have been a number of these collisions where feet have come down in the moment on another player's foot or ankle or leg or something else that have been ignored. And so it just feels extreme to go from that not happening prior to the knockout stage to now, okay, we're going to give a straight red for it after review. It just, that one, I think that's been the main one that's just caught me off guard in a way that I didn't expect. Whereas most of the others, I can make a case either way. Like, you get far enough into a tournament, you start letting some fouls slide because it is a physical game and you understand it.
Right.
And as long as it's not escalating, it's like, yeah, I'm going to let them play.
Yeah. Advantage.
And so
advantage.
like, especially with the goalkeeper, situations, like, yeah, I could see letting that go. Like, I was surprised there was no card, but I could see letting that go. I don't know. It certainly feels slightly off.
Yeah, that red card was, again, especially for the reason you mentioned, I think it was a harsh call, and I think maybe this is where okay, VAR is relatively new, and maybe that's where it's like, okay, you need to watch it in real time several times, and then watch it frame by frame, and have a more holistic approach on that, and so. But yeah, I don't think it should have been more than a yellow card. It certainly wasn't malicious. It was, this is where these parts are going to be in the physical space we occupy based on how they came together and so forth. There's not really any avoiding it. And at one point I thought it was more of his ankle kind of turned, and it didn't look too bad, but it definitely, there was a point where it looked like his boot got pulled down off of the heel of his foot, and it looked like it was more that than actual potential injury or collision. So
yeah, it was tough for me to tell. I couldn't tell if the boot moved or if it was just the angle or what.
I'm pretty sure the boot moved. So
and I certainly would have expected it to. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm really unsure of what to think about it, and because if anything, if I thought somebody was, it's like if I thought FIFA was trying to rig the game, I would have expected them to, based on how much the interactions between Infantino and Trump, I would have expected it, more calls to go for the U.S. or against Bosnia.
Yeah, I had that thought too. But then I also would have thought that you would not have, like if you really wanted to go the conspiracy route, then you would have had Senegal knock out Belgium.
Right. So yeah, and this is what makes me think that it is mostly a fair tournament, and it is that there are, well, first of all, there's over 1,000 players. So it's not, I don't think you're going to see match fixing at a player level. And it's usually not at a player level. It's usually at the referee level because there's far fewer of them, and they can have a much bigger impact on the game than the players. But I I I do know that there is I wouldn't say necessarily a fair amount of inconsistency, but there's certainly inconsistency with referee to referee to referee in the tournament, and over the man, I can whip it out right now and say that over the decades I've been watching, yeah, that's just that is the nature of human interpretation. So there's certainly working to make it better. Especially, I mean, I feel like the offsides calls this tournament have been spot on. So, and the more technology that's added, well, I was gonna say the more technology that's added, the better it'll get. But you just you know pointed out, like, yeah, looking at frame by frame doesn't necessarily give you the better picture. So
Yeah, the offsides one bugs me a little bit because I appreciate the amount of detail that we can, and I think we actually even talked about this slightly.
we did.
But like, I appreciate the amount of detail that you can get and really get it right. But then at the same time, when you're talking millimeters over the line, it's not in the spirit of the game. Like, you as a person are not going to be able to tell that finely if you are onside or offside. You know?
Yeah. And so maybe it could be argued that it's like now we can get perfect offsides calls, and we don't have to rely on human variability or sort of standard deviation for what humans are capable of. So it's different, but at least it's consistent.
Yeah, that's true. It has been consistently down to millimeters.
Yeah, I think it's been more consistent than if we were 100% lying on the referee and the touch judges. So
yeah, I would agree with that.
Did you enjoy
I
that?
did.
Go ahead.
I definitely did not anticipate the shakeup in some of the games. Going back to reference like Senegal, Belgium, how Senegal was leading up until the 80-something minute, and then Belgium manages to tie and then go into extra time. Like, those types of things just happen so infrequently when you think about how many games you watch in like the Premier League as a comparison, that it's really interesting how so many games have shaped up this tournament.
Oh yeah, it's I decided not to compare the two. Like a few tournaments ago, I decided not to compare the two because I remember watching, being disappointed. I think it was like maybe the 2010 or 2014 World Cup, and thinking, I was like, these guys, some of these teams are just not as good as club teams. Yeah. Well, I will say this. Becca said to me, she's like, if the United States win, because the United States is. I'm going to get on here. I'll start it with this. But Becca said to me, if the United States wins the whole thing, I'll know it's rigged. And I'm like, I agree with that. And then I came back to her and I said, it depends on how they win. It really depends on how they win. So it would, it'll come down to like what kind of officiating occurs. But, and for the first time, in my life, since I've been watching it, it's like, if somebody says, I think they can win, I'm like, I can't say you're wrong, because it's like, it's the first time it's ever been.
It's the first time they've looked competitive.
Yeah. Like I
really looked competitive.
Yeah. I can't remember if I told you. Yeah. No, I told my cousin, I was like, the loss to Turkey was so much better than any win that I've ever seen them before this tournament. Like, they were such a better team losing to Turkey than they've ever been in any previous World Cup that I've seen.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, realistically, today's match, for all the oddities that you could go into about different things as far as the officiating, none of the calls were really that. There was nothing that was called that makes you scratch your head to the point where you couldn't see why it was called.
Right. The closest we come is that red card. Yeah,
and even then, like as talked about, like you could still see why the case could be made for a red. Like,
right.
It's not that it was out of the realm of possibility.
We're just saying that was pretty harsh. We're not saying that's we're not saying that was unfair. We're not saying that was out of nowhere. We're not saying that's ridiculous. It's just harsh.
Yeah. But watching them play after that red card.
Oh yeah.
It looked like a different team than any time I've ever seen the U.S. men play previously.
playing 10 men, playing 10 men, one man down, playing with 9 outfielders. Better than practically every, maybe not the 2002 team, but I didn't watch a lot of that, but better than any time I've ever seen them in the World Cup before. Again,
yeah,
it's it's a lot of after Sir Alex Ferguson left Manchester United, I was like, okay, yeah, the head coach has a hell of a lot to do with how the players play, and so I got a lot of this credit where credit's due goes to trying to
Pochettino.
Yes, thank you for saving me on that one. A lot of credit goes to his the style of play that he brought, what he's done with this team. The players are doing the players are in better places. We've Pulisic, he plays in Milan, who wasn't in the Champions League last year, but he played alongside Ibrahimovic, who was not no slouch. So even towards the end of his career, so just like the creativity that we saw tonight was so much fun. Like, this is the most beautiful I've ever seen them. They are not. It doesn't look like they're out there. We just ran a bunch of drills. They are imaginative, and that's so much. That's the reason we want to play. Like, I think they played the game more beautifully than either the Netherlands or Germany.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would maybe argue a little bit on Germany only in spurts, but I think you can make the same case either way. And the only reason I even say that is Germany always seems to have its moments where they'll make something look phenomenal. I think the difference is that the U.S. has been playing that way more consistently.
Yeah, they're playing that way for the 90 minutes, and like you said, spurts. And I don't know what was going on with the Netherlands.
Yeah, I don't. That one threw me for a loop.
I mean,
that did not look like the team that I've seen play.
No, it looked like Van Dijk was trying to hold everything together.
Maybe, and then I saw, I was surprised he didn't take a penalty.
Yeah,
some of the commentary after that, it was kind of strange. It just, I don't know.
It seemed so. Going back to the coaching, it makes a huge difference. It looked like they were just was Morocco that did they go? Was he? Morocco's been great, and I know that 4 years ago they were the darling of the tournament because I think that was their first time to qualify, and they did so well, and they did well. They've been doing well in this tournament, and it just seems like, did they get into his head?
Maybe.
Yeah. Did he feel like he just needed to drastically change the strategy because of one reason or another? It's if that was the case, it certainly backfired.
I do think that's something that's happening more often than maybe it would have in the past. Because if you go back to Germany, Paraguay, it didn't feel like the same type of German team that you generally would expect to see play. They had their moments, but it just didn't feel like the Germany team. Same thing with the Netherlands, whereas Paraguay, Morocco both felt like they played really well and just showed that they were capable of being competitive on this stage just as much as anybody else. And not to take anything away from either team, because both obviously have done well historically in different things as well. I'm not saying that any of them are bad teams. It's more the teams that we have seen show up in this tournament and the way that they've played have been the teams that you're less likely to expect to show up and play. It's probably the better way to phrase it.
I think I totally agree with that, with the exception of France.
Yeah, I kind of I don't have anything specifically against France, but I just want somebody to take them out because of how
They're a power.
everybody always talks them up,
Well, I mean, it's not.
It's not unjustified.
Yeah.
I don't want to take anything away from them. It's just I would like to see them get knocked down a notch or two.
So at this point, it's like
I would like to see Argentina get knocked down a notch or two too. But
well, I mean, I think the way the brackets work out, the earliest they would meet, it could be a France Argentina final. I think I'm looking at that correctly. Yeah, because they're on opposite ends of the bracket, so it could be a France Argentina final. I honestly thought France was gonna knock Germany out. I thought that's what was gonna happen. So I've been very wrong on a lot of things, but I think we've mentioned it's been mentioned that the United States is the dark horse of this tournament, but I really think it's England that's the dark horse. I think they have a really good chance of making it to the final.
based on what I've seen of them so far, I'd agree too.
I hate that they're playing Mexico, because I also wanted to see. Well, so with the expectation that, so I don't know what to expect from Belgium now.
I don't either, because in part of that match against Senegal, they also did not look like they showed up.
Right. So I don't know what to expect between the United States and Belgium. I feel like it could go. It's one of the. It's going to be like who's better on the day. I kind of think. But with the assumption that the United States won't make it past the quarterfinals, I wanted to see Mexico win it, because new country, new continent.
I could see that. I don't have any strong feelings about who to win in general, surprisingly enough. There are certainly countries I would prefer to see win. The way this U.S. team is playing, I'd love to see them shock everybody and make it.
If they win, they would deserve it for sure.
I wouldn't have any qualms. I don't think I'd have any qualms with any country that's remaining winning it, other than I just would like to not see Argentina repeat, only from the standpoint of it doesn't feel right. But at the same time, I wouldn't mind letting Messi get his record-breaking. Like there's two sides to that one.
Yeah.
I mean, and same thing with France. Like, as much as I would like to see France knocked down a little bit, I also wouldn't mind seeing Mbappe get his record-breaking tournament.
I'm gonna say I think it's gonna be France and Argentina in the final. I don't see, like, if either one of those loses on the way to the last match, it's gonna be a huge upset, and I'm not sure that I see anyone in the brackets that would bring that upset.
Yeah, I'd probably have to look closer at the brackets, but I wouldn't expect it anyway. I mean, Argentina's reigning returning.
Well, nobody
can you really be a reigning champion with the World Cup?
They're considered that, yeah.
Yeah.
But no team has ever won it back to back.
Right.
And on top of that, one of my favorite things was like the final in 2006 was between France and Italy. Italy won, and in 2010 in South Africa, both France and Italy were at the bottom of the table. Like bottom of their group. They did not pass the group stage. France went on to do better, but Italy did the exact same thing in 2010, and then they haven't qualified since. No, 2014. I don't know. It's been This is the third World Cup in a row they haven't qualified for. So yeah, 2018. Yeah, 2014 was the last time they were in a World Cup tournament. It's like Italy is usually like really good. My cousin was asking me, he's like, is the Serie A any good anymore? And I was like, I mean, they sent 4 teams to the Champions League, so they haven't lost any spots there.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you kind of have to wonder how much more competitive the world stage has become, and how much that makes it seem like some of the powerhouses just aren't all that good, just because they didn't adapt well to the added pressure and intensity from other teams.
France is the only European team that you could say has. They won it. They won their first World Cup in 1998, and they've been to the final more times than any other country since then in that span. If you shorten the statistic, to the 21st century, France and Argentina are tied for the number of times they've been to the final. So, and each having won a tournament in the 21st century. So, I have noticed that the level of play is not as I'm not sure, it's not aggressive. It's that I'm not sure exactly what to call it, but I'm like, I can't remember the last time I've seen a diving header. Like, they just don't do that anymore. And it kind of reminds me of a quote when Arsenal was going through its the beginning of their big slump over in the 2010s, and it was Patrick Vieira was captain during for the unbeatable squad, and he made a comment that about the I think this is probably 2012, 2013. He said the players now are afraid to put their feet where we were putting our heads, and I'm noticing that kind of thing in the play, even like in this World Cup. It's like, I haven't seen a diving hitter in a long time. Not just in the World Cup, but just in general.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I hadn't thought about it from that perspective. I think I've saw. I don't know. I'd have to go back and see. It seems like I thought I saw someone at least somewhat simulating a diving header.
I mean, we've seen some bicycle kick. Even in this tournament, we've seen like at least one bicycle kick that I can think of.
And it might be that I caught the tail end of that. I don't know. I can't remember. I just remember someone being horizontal, and it was ended up with some sort of shot on goal. So it may have been a bicycle kick attempt instead of a header.
It's kind of a thing I kind of want to like dig into a little more, because it's like, it's not so much specifically the diving hitter, but just what the diving hitter represents. And because it's people aren't putting themselves out like that. It's like, a diving hitter being like, my head has to hit the ball in this way, and the only way I can get to it is to put my body into space to make sure that my head gets there. And it, like, really, there's no consideration for what happens after scoring the goal. So it's more like the representation than the actual shot or act.
Yeah, I tracked what the thought was. And it's not something like I do wonder how much of it is that and how much of it is maybe a little bit fearful of how aggressively fouls can be called. And so it's more in the situations where you don't have complete control of your body, you're more likely to potentially have something called against you, Like that could be the catalyst for why you're seeing less of it, but it could also be longevity of career and other stuff. There are plenty of different things. Like it opens up a lot of examination that could be interesting. Is what I'm really getting at.
Yeah, and I will say that the flip side of that, I feel like I see a lot more tactical fouls, like like straight up just like pulling somebody, pushing somebody, pulling on the shirt, like a lot more. It's like for tactical purposes of preventing somebody from getting into a better goal scoring position without drawing a yellow card. I feel like I've seen a lot more of that in this tournament. I felt like we were going to talk about the United States as a country more than we have in this conversation, but it's taken a pleasant twist. But I did want to say that I think something has been a good experience for me is one separating. I think I mentioned this on one of the last episodes we talked about. It's like I didn't watch any of the 22 World Cup except for the final, just because I was like it was very much anti-FIFA, and I really just hurt myself in that regard. And so I've been watching a lot of matches, and was even talking to somebody, and like, we hate FIFA, but we like to watch football, and they said soccer, but this particular, I think because even though I'm not going to any matches, in person. I think just the fact that American people are around me experiencing this in a way that we haven't seen ever, because in '94 there was no social media, there was no sharing of stories like we have seen, and it's been very restorative, one, to see Americans being good hosts to the 48 nations that are here, and for the 47 other nations that are here, and then for the other nations to see that we're good hosts and that we are friendly, loving people and good folks. And I think that sort of exchange has been really restorative, in that it's like, oh, it's really easy. I think it's made it easier for us to have conversations about how you and I are more alike than either of us in our respective governments.
Devising unqualified opinions, applying filtered thoughts, discussing distilled feelings. Jesse and John on the line, talking life 1 week at a time. Good takes, bad takes, all the same. Real talk, always in the frame. Monday to Friday, we come through. One mic, two minds, nothing fake for you. Throw it out, break it down, turn it over, spin it around. Filtered thoughts. Jesse and John, we got a lot. Distilled feelings. Talking life, talking real things. Filtered thoughts. One more thought, then we lock it off. Listen in every week, Jesse and John, conversation deep, various topics, same two guys, talking through the highs and lows of life.
Yeah, I agree completely. I paused just to make sure I had a clean cut point, because I like wrapping up with that type of sentiment.
Yeah.
And I am getting tired, so I wanted to give myself an option.
I'm getting tired too, and I'm sorry. I was sorry I was late. So
it happens. I would have been tired either way. So, interesting anecdote. I put it in here as a possible topic, but I learned through my rewrite of MA Journey that I was overtraining more than I realized, because of disparate systems measuring things that were not as corollary as they could have been. And so I can tell a difference as I've made an adjustment. I'm recovering because I feel better, but I'm noticing that I'm still not back to recovering the way I should be. And so I taper off toward the end of the day more than I used to. So my body is still readjusting, but all interesting related stuff, but I don't want to take a huge digression. We can talk about it, in the future.
No, that's a really good, it didn't even occur to me about recovery as a really, that's a really strong reason to use an application like that, to catch things like that. It's like, the things that we can start to do to catch drug interactions that we didn't have before. I'll just say, some at some point after smartphones were ubiquitous. So,
yeah. So I had one that I didn't even think about. One of the people beta testing takes beta blockers, and thought that they were hitting a point where it was exercise-induced nausea because of how high their heart rate and all was getting. And so they actually decided to pick up a heart rate tracker specifically to have the data to correlate. And this made it easier because they could view the subset of the data compared to notes they were making on training and everything else to remember, oh, this is what was happening this particular session, and all that stuff. So use cases that I hadn't thought about either also coming up.
Very cool stuff.